Hello everyone and welcome back to another Black Desert video. So today I have an interesting topic that I thought about updating, which is 5 mistakes that people make in this game. Now, I wanted to talk about a few different things this time. There's actually a lot of mistakes that people make in this game and that you shouldn't do, but 5 important ones that I think new players would get caught up in and you shouldn't do. So I made a list of things that people make mistakes on in BDO. So, in no particular order, they are all kind of like things you probably should avoid. Is 1, Godr weapons. Now, as we all know, whether you're going for Pen Blackstar or Sovereign, going for the Godr weapons is a little bit outdated. And the reason why is because overall, buying one that's not at pen tier is kind of a bait. So back in the day, the original use of this was to get small progressions when Pen Blackstar was the main weapon that everyone was using before Sovereign and everything. So back when it was actually very difficult, basically if you had Tet, that was considered the meta at the time, and then Pen means you were kind of geared or very lucky. So the gap was like actually large with like 2 AP brackets or like 8 AP difference, and people would get incremental gains back in the day from going the Godr route. Now, is it a good idea to buy it at pen? I think it's fine. However, you're gonna have to convert it into Blackstar to go for Sovereign in the future. I don't know why they made it so you can't just use the Godr route when the items are exactly the same. But it is what it is, maybe in the future. But one thing I want to say is new players are probably looking at this like, oh, I make some AP on the side. The hard truth is you're actually spending more on average because you have to self-enhance all of this. And it's usually just on average not a good idea. What I would recommend doing for all of you guys is probably just saving up or raw tapping the Tet to pen onto Blackstar, just because it helps build veil stacks, and or if it goes, then obviously it goes. That's a good thing, right? But yeah, in 2025 they gave out 2 Pen Blackstars through seasons, getting level 61, and then you get a free Tet. So it's not that bad these days actually. And with that Tet, I would just kind of like raw tap it all the way, just in terms of value. So yeah, it's a good thing to just avoid the Godr route unless you're straight up buying it at pen, but just know you're gonna have to convert it to Blackstar to make upgrades in the future, which ultimately is not that expensive. It's just like, you know, extra 1 billion or so that you don't have to spend if you just go to Blackstar route. All right, number 2, Blackstar Armors, while we're still on the topic. So back in the day, before we had Fallen God, or when Fallen God was actually new, we have all the Blackstar Armors, which you can find over here. Now, the reason why these are bait nowadays is because the Fallen God armors exist, and what you should be doing is going from the yellow tier straight to the Fallen God, or if you save up enough silver, just skipping all that and going straight to Fallen God. So back in the day, the reason why everyone had Blackstar Armors, well actually even back in the day it was kind of a bait too, and it wasn't really that good, is because once again it would cost more to enhance it. And the way it worked was, if you had a Pen Blackstar armor, you can convert this to a Fallen God, whereas the route that normal people take is you get an armor, the yellow tier one, Pen, Capris 10, and then that's 2 ways to go to the same path of Fallen God. However, we're kind of at this point again where Capris stones are basically sold out, which actually is not even that bad. But a couple of years ago when Fallen God was new, you see this order number? It was like in this upper 6 figures, like 500,000 orders and more, which was actually kind of crazy. So it was almost impossible for people to get a large amount of Capris stones on the regular, so Blackstars was the alternative way to get Fallen God. So a little bit of lore for all of you newer players out there. And also, enhancing a Tet to Pen Blackstar is actually a very low rate, and it's just not worth it. So if you're gonna go to Fallen God route, chances are, like, what is it, 26 billion for the armor, and this one is like 29 for less stats. You might as well just go to Fallen God route and not have to do any sort of RNG enhancing. So you see how the numbers don't even add up right now? That's why you should skip all the armors. And if you grind, if you're at like the mid tier of the game, where like 240, 270 AP, and you're looking at spots like, let me show you, Elvia Orcs, for example, and you see all these items that are like, oh, Voltara's Flame or the Seed of the Void and everything. You're just like, what do I do with this? You vendor it and get the silver. What these do are, they would, like, these things, you would put them onto your Blackstar armor that gives you stats. It's kind of like Capra Stones, but like a different way of getting them. And that's not even worth it. That just adds to your total that you shouldn't be spending. But yeah, just a little bit of the lore on what they were useful for and what they did back in the day. So for all you new players out there, you don't even have to think about it. Very cool, right? All right, the next thing I want to talk about is more on the new side of BDO that they added recently, which I don't think it's particularly bad. It's just currently at the rate they're going, it's not good. So these blessings of mystical or mystic beasts. So let's talk about this for a second. I've talked about this in other videos, but just to continue saying it until people stop doing it, it will be a good thing. So these blessings, they came out recently, and they're the equivalent of the house furnitures, right? So to give you an idea, let's take the AP one because that's the only one that really matters. Let's be honest, the rest of them are more PvP tailored, but even then, it's, you know, like high-end PvP, I would say. So let's take this one because most people just do PvE, and let's look at it. So plus 15 AP for 1 hour, right? The item is used as a convenience thing because you can just hold on to it and use it if you forgot to use the house furnishing. But it's 15 AP, 1 hour for, let's just say, I don't know, 32 million, right? Keep that in mind. 1 hour, 32 million. What you should do instead is go down to like the decorations, I believe, and you could even buy other things that are better. But for a comparison, you could get this one and use it in town before you go grinding. And if you look at this one, this is plus 15 AP for 3 hours with 10 charges, right? So buying this one is the equivalent of buying 30 of those blessings and the 300 mil. So once again, we talked about 32 mil for one blessing, 32 mil, 1 hour. So this one is 300 mil for 30 hours. So you see how you're getting triple value by not being lazy, and it's cheaper. You should do that. So it's a little mistake that I think that these blessings are actually a good thing. It's just not at the current price. If these drop down to, like, there are people buying it for 32, that's wild. If these drop down to like 15, 20 mil, that's still not the best value, but it's more like the convenience tax you're paying for having to use it because you forgot to, like, pop a house buff. But yeah, just wanted to give you a quick PSA that these are not particularly value worth, but they're convenient. So I don't think they're a bad item. It's just, I just showed you a cheaper way to get the same effect for triple value, right? Makes sense. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the Jetina weapons. Now, I made a video of this back when they were relevant and actually good. So you see all these quests over here to, what, actually, hold on. I've done it already, but it's like the resplendent armor and resplendent weapons. And basically what they do are allows you to make pen weapons guaranteed without enhancing. However, in 2025, they are not worth it. Like, if you check the price of, I don't know, let's look at a dandelion. These used to be the meta multiple years ago, and a pen dandy is less than 1 billion silver. to craft a Jetina guaranteed pen would cost you around 7 to 10 billion, I believe. I have a video, they might have changed it, but either way, it's not worth doing this anymore. The ones that are still worth doing is the Old Moon support for the accessories, which you could always melt these down for Essence of Dawn and use those to enhance Karazad. So the accessories are worth. Making the weapons and armor is not worth anymore. The weapons might be breaking even to the point where it might depends on your server, but realistically, chances are people won't need it. Plus, these aren't even sellable on the market. I remember I made one. Let me see. Yeah, so remember this one? I made this one for the video. I tanked like minus 10 billion just to make a video years ago and to show you how to do it. But either way, it's not worth it. What most people should do is just skip the whole dandelion route and go back to grinding, doing whatever you're doing to make silver. And Jetina weapons and armors, no longer worth it in 2025. Accessories are. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is, let me see, what did I write down? Lightstone combos. Now, this one isn't particularly a mistake. It's just something that people don't really know what they're doing. So if you look at all of these and you're just like, okay, so what do? I have all of these. A beginner would probably just put 4 random combinations that they think are the best, but also the real thing that people should be looking at are using them in specific combos that give you an effect. Now, for example, specific combos of Lightstones will give you a better effect than putting like random stuff in. So usually in Black Desert, hybrid builds have never been really optimal. You can do it, but it's just like you might as well just pick something. So for example, if you want to play a tanky build, there's DR, damage reduction, and evasion. A hybrid of both of them never really worked out. You could do it on some classes like Mystic, but even then it's probably like for 99% of people, it's just better to go one route or the other, DR being the most common one for people, and then evasion is for like the super geared specific players anyway. So there's a spreadsheet you can just Google. I don't have it off the top of my hand, but if you want to look up Lightstone combos and find like the specific things that you can min-max, it's probably a better idea than to just put like 4 random Lightstones that have no combination with each other. And so I see a lot of people doing this, especially if they're new players. They just buy 4 things that they think look good instead of taking a little bit of time to look up what kind of combinations you can put into your Lightstones. And I believe it's even on the official notes, it gave you like a full list. But either way, you can Google it. Just search up like Lightstone artifact spreadsheet, and then it'll tell you everything you need to know, especially if you're a Lifeskiller, because there's a lot of combinations. So yeah, I think one thing to do before you purchase any sort of Lightstones is look up the list and find a combo that works for you, because it's probably better than if just putting 4 random things together. Usually the offensive ones work together. Like if you 4 reds versus like, I don't know, 2 reds, a brown and a blue, for example, usually they work together in terms of, you know, color. Like red is more offensive, the brown ones are like defensive, and then blue ones are like utility, resources, and the green ones are all life skill. So yeah, to give you an idea, most of them work together in terms of like offense, defense, utility, and then life skill works a little bit differently, but ultimately that's something you guys can look up. So if you're a new player and you're confused about all of this, don't worry, it's actually not that bad. Just look up a guide, and I even have a lot of videos on that too, so maybe I'll link it in the description to what I have. And that was 5, but I have one extra thing that I wrote down, and it's something that newer crafters don't really pay attention to. So I'm gonna talk about this for cooking and alchemy. So as we all know, a lot of cooking and alchemy profits come from actually min-maxing and doing margin trading. So that means like buying low, selling it high, and then, you know, that's how you make your profit while cooking. So if we look over here, a lot of people don't actually look at this to the point where it says at the bottom, or like, you know how if you're crafting certain things, you can exchange for like a 3-to-1 ratio. So like if you have a blue one, you only need 1 elixir, whereas if you have green ones, you use like 3 of them. So to make the same product, let me see if I have any examples of something. So yeah, this is actually, hold on, let me find something. I haven't done alchemy in a while. I guess we'll use this one. So you see how this one requires, like, you can use like different things. Actually, hold on, that's a bad example. A lot of these, do I have something for cooking? Oh yeah, also some meats can be used differently. So basically, here's how you look at it. Sometimes there are materials that have blue tiers, and also green tiers and white tiers. Blue tiers are the most like highly valued, so you don't have to use as many of them. Let's say you're doing something with sunrise herbs, right? So there's 3 tiers: white, green, blue. Let's say it requires like 6 sunrise herbs, so white tier. If you use a blue one, you only have to use like 1 of them for most recipes. And then if you use green, I think it's different. But either way, what I've seen people do is they're like, oh, I'm going to use it. A recipe or a guide says you need 6 sunrise herbs or something. And then people are using the blue versions, and when it really means you need 6 white ones. So you're basically losing money by using the higher tier ones, and you don't need as many. And when you're upgrading elixirs as well, or doing, let's say, Imperial delivery and turn-ins, one thing to know is you could do like 3-to-1 trade-ups, and then you can convert green to blue. And it's a little bit of a confusing process when you're first thinking about it, but just know there are multiple tiers of various like materials. Let's use sunrise herbs, for example. There's white tier, then also green and blue. White tier will use more, blue tier will use less. And so that's one thing I see people making a mistake on. When guide says use something and people are using the higher tiers, you just don't need as many. And so I just want to make sure that everyone is maximizing their profits, whatever you're making. And especially for elixirs and, you know, foods and potions and everything, because that's something everyone uses at the end game. And so, yeah, just make sure you're not like literally lighting silver on fire doing this. So that's one of those things that you just learn over time. And I'm glad that this game has, it remembers what you used. So I know wild grass is another one that has multiple colors of tiers and everything. And I've actually made that mistake multiple times before, so I'm just sharing that with you guys. All right, well, there's a lot more mistakes that I could probably talk about, but we'll save that for another episode, like maybe a part 3 in the future. But with that said, hopefully this was helpful, especially if you're newer players. This is a lot of outdated information that, you know, you might have seen a guide like 5 years ago that is no longer relevant in 2025. So just wanted to keep you guys up to date. Thanks again for watching. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. I want to say thanks so much for all the support on the videos. If you're new, hit that subscribe button. I'd love to see you come back. And I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.